I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Nelson County Board of Education. It is Tuesday, August 15th, 2017 at 5 p.m. And let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Nelson County Board of Education, representatives of our citizens and entrusted with their children, pledges to support the mission of the Nelson County School District by setting visionary direction through effective policy, oversight, and efficient resource management. Our vision statement, quality education now, learning for life. Mr. Brown, are there any changes in the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Before we get started, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Terry Gohagan. I'm the school board attorney. We want to acknowledge that the board has received a complaint that violations of the Kentucky Open Meetings Act occurred at our working session on August 3, 2017. At that time, we inadvertently failed to state the appropriate section of the Open Meetings Law, in other words, KRS, under which the board went into executive session at the work session on that date, and failed to state the general nature of the business to be discussed. The executive session on August 3rd was pursuant to KRS 61.810, 1C and 1F, and basically that deals with litigation and with personnel issues. And the items discussed in the executive session were related to potential litigation and the potential appointment of new employees. No action was taken at the board during or after the executive session on August 3rd. The board is aware of the requirements and importance of the Kentucky Open Meetings Act and has taken measures to prevent future violations. And I just might add, that's for those of you that are not aware that the working sessions are much more informal than the board meeting sessions. And actually on that day, as the attorney for 30-some years, I probably should have caught that, we are in a situation, I think, dealing with issues that have never come up during my tenure working with the board, in that we've had a superintendent to resign during the tenure. I don't think we've had that before in recent years. So we are, I guess, the board hadn't asked me to say this, but on their behalf, I would tell you that we're dealing with issues we haven't dealt with before in a long time. I think from the standpoint of me seeing these folks operate, I can tell you they're trying to do the very best they can. They're under some difficult circumstances. They have listened to, I think, what the public has had to say and what the public has, their concerns from the public. And I would say from my view of them, they're doing their very best to try to address issues and be responsible to the public. So we would hope that everybody in the public would have a little bit of patience. And I just tell you that from my standpoint, when I see them, they're doing the best they can. Thank you.
First up is student and stakeholder engagement, student performance.
At this point in time, I'd like to introduce Mr. Kevin Payton, principal at New Haven School.
Thank you all. For our performance tonight, as you know, we are a Leader in Me school, and this is our third year in it. We do a lot of different leadership roles with the kids and build their leadership within the school. Our kindergarten, first grade are coming in, a lot of them new to it. Kindergarten, this is brand new introduction to Leader in Me, so we spend the first few weeks going over what Leader in Me is and changing their mindset and paradigm, and then they start learning the habits. Well, our kindergarten teachers and our first grade teachers kind of put together a performance within 5 days here of a Leader in Me song they have created themselves, set to the tune of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. So this is kind of the Leader in Me introduction for our kindergarten and first grade. Miss Gann, Miss Duncan, and Miss Hash. like I said, they put that together in 5 days. I got in here quick, and they've done an excellent job working on that. So, like I said, Miss Gaines, Miss Duncan, Miss Hatch are our teachers, and then Miss Debbie and Miss Annette are our aides at help, and Miss Bell is our new SPED teacher. So they've worked hard. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Payton. That was excellent. Thank you, teachers and students. We appreciate you all coming out tonight. You did an excellent job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, parents, for bringing them out. You aunts and uncles, too. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. All right. Next area is good news, and from Bloomfield Elementary School, they've been working hard to get their building looking fabulous for parents and students. They have spruced up the landscaping outside, painted walls in the hallways, classrooms, and waxed and cleaned floors. If you've been in that building, it does look great. Members of the Bloomfield Middle School Beta Club competed at the National Junior Beta Convention June 25th to the 28th in Orlando, Florida. Carson Mattingly was elected as the National Junior Beta Chaplain. The campaign skit crew placed champion and chaplain campaign skit. They also earned national champion for the trading pin category. BMS Betas competed in the service snapshot, presenting their 2016-2017 efforts and partnering with the Dream Factory of Louisville. They raised over $4,000 to help sponsor a child's dream. Members of the club will be invited to the airport for a send-off and return celebration for the recipient of their dream. Boston has welcomed some amazing new staff members this year. For the first time in the history of Boston School, they have an assistant principal, Mr. Josh DeWare. They had an amazing beginning to the new school year and look forward to a great year. Foster Heights had a very smooth start to the school year. Students are doing an excellent job learning school expectations and leadership habits. 122 classes were recovered during summer school by students at Thomas Nelson, Nelson County, and Horizons Academy. Thanks to Chris Mattingly and Kate Kerzinger for their dedication to these students. Nelson County Early Learning Center had 67 students come to their fall screening. New Haven students are excited to be back to school, but more excited to play on the new playground. The playground officially opened last Friday with a cutting and removing of the caution tape. The playground looks great. New mulch is coming this week. The school year has started off great with new staff and students getting acclimated to the New Haven school. There's a lot of positive energy in the halls and classrooms as we continue to grow on the successes of last year. Nelson County High School has received a grant to start up a VEX Robotics Club. This will offer students an exciting platform for learning about areas rich with career opportunities spanning science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Old Kentucky Home is having their first Wildcat Wearable Spirit Day of the 2017-18 school year. Students are really showing their enthusiasm. Brandon Darby, a 2017 graduate of Thomas Nelson County High School, was elected to the prestigious role of Kentucky State 4-H Treasurer.
Good stuff going on.
Next is as an ELC award. At that time, I'd like to introduce Ms. Anne Marie Williams to explain to everyone what that is about.
I'm just very excited to announce that our preschool program is now a 5-star rating preschool. And really, all the acknowledgement needs to go to the staff and the principal at that building. And so I'm going to turn it over to Principal Holly Walker so she can come and share exactly what those 5 stars mean. But we have already celebrated this acknowledgement. So last year was a really long year, especially the second semester for the preschool. We had 2 days of 19 different people in our building doing ECHRs. Then we had 6 days of ECHRs representatives in there. That was only 2 people each time. And we had the consolidated audit. And we had all stars. So we were quite overwhelmed, but our teachers were extremely diligent and being very busy so that we could be a 5-star school. What that means, what it means to me and to us as a school now that we know the new way that all schools are going to be designated, everybody's going to a star system, makes me feel a whole lot better. I'll tell you, in the beginning I was a little apprehensive because childcare also can have a star rating. But now that every school from high school on down is going to have a star rating, that's going to put us on the same playing field with all of them. So we're required to have family and community engagement activities. So part of that, I had to provide sign-in sheets and different activities to show that we invited the community in and parents in a certain amount of times. Our classroom quality, 50% of all of our teachers had to participate in developmental screening activities. They had to complete an environmental self-assessment using the tools that we already use, which is our ECHRs tool. And then there was a variety of other ways that we could earn extra points in that classroom and instructional quality. And then staff qualifications and professional development. All of our teachers had to be IEC certified, at least 50%, but all of them were at the time. And the program site administrator or directive had to receive 10 hours of professional learning in curriculum, instructional practice, and or teaching. And we received that through the early childhood intervention week-long seminar that they have at the Galt House every year. So that's how I received that. And then there was other things that included, like staff had to have a certain amount of paid days, they had to have health insurance, they had to have a retirement system. So there was a whole lot of things that go into this. It's not just preschool. It was a lot to do with the adults and what we do to serve our students. So I was very proud of it and super excited. We just found out about a week before staff came back to work. So it was a long process with lots of information going back and forth, but we did.
And 5 is the highest, right?
5 is the highest, yes. Yes, it is the highest.
You left one piece out too. I mean, everything you talked about as far as the evaluations and people in the building and watching what you're doing, you left out the fact of the craziness of construction.
Oh, I forgot about construction.
And that your staff and students were still able to flourish and exhibit what was needed to get that 5-star rating through all that crazy times.
It was a long second semester, but we survived. And I think we're better for it. So thank you all very much.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Next up is our operations consent agenda, and this consists of several documents that were sent to us as board members prior to tonight's meeting to review. And so I'll need a motion to approve those documents as they were presented.
Motion.
Ms. Berry made the motion.
Wait a second.
Mr. Norman second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is our efficient resource management, and wait a minute, where am I? And this is the Nelson County Early Learning Center change orders with Mr. Hockstead.
Yes, ma'am. Again, we talk about these every month at our work session that was referenced earlier. Tonight we're asking formal approval for change orders 12 and 16 at the Early Learning Center. Change order 12, structural steel services, playground rail and panels. And I know you all heard the discussion about rails and panels many, many times. And we are finally to the point to ask for that formal approval tonight. Change order 16, Dixon Electric relocated power and data in a wall caused by adding a window. We had a classroom with no window. We added a window, and things like that happened to renovated facilities. So we're asking that you approve change order 12 and 16 for the Early Learning Center.
Okay.
Make a motion.
Mr. Jackie
for
made,
both of those change orders, 12 and 16.
Mr. Jackie made the motion, Ms. Dye second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thomas Nelson.
Change order 10 at Thomas Nelson, Ted McKean Company to fix ceramic tile where a door meets existing finished space. Again, these are change orders we've discussed multiple times over the last month or two. I'd ask that you approve formally that change order tonight.
Need a motion to approve the change orders for Thomas Nelson.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Mormon made a motion.
Second.
Ms. Dye second, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Under our safe and caring environment, we have the SRO program approval and job description.
Over the summer, there were, I guess, 9 different town halls held. Each of you attended one or more of those. And at each of those town halls, it was a recurring theme that popped up was the desire for a lot of folks, or from a lot of folks, to see us reinstitute an SRO program in the district. And I've been working with the Department of Criminal Justice Training. I've talked to folks from a number of school districts throughout Kentucky. And we would recommend tonight that you approve the job description that's attached and approve the program in general. And what that allows us to do is now proceed with paperwork to become licensed as a law enforcement agency. I don't really like the way that sounds, because we're a school district, but in order to be able to hire special law enforcement officers, you have to go through certain processes with the Department of Criminal Justice Training. This will allow us to proceed with that. I will tell you that the discussions we've had with staff, Mr. Brown and others, is that we see the program being different than what we've had in the past, being officer or officers that will be in all buildings, that would work with principals to incorporate law enforcement issues in curriculum, mentoring students, etc. We see it as a blank slate at this point. We've got districts that have successful programs in place that we've talked to, McCracken, Montgomery, and others. Obviously, Fayette and Jefferson have law enforcement staffs, but there are districts that are closer in size to us that we've been in contact with, and we will continue to be in contact with. We get this approval tonight to move forward to try to put a program in place here in Nelson County.
I might also say that this is the preference by the sheriff and Bardstown Police Chief that we go at this angle on the SRO program. We've been in quite in-depth conversation with both of them.
I also see the law enforcement staff here being liaisons to Sheriff's Department and City Police, whether it's general issues that come up or maybe something as simple as scheduling security for a Friday night football game. So if we have our own folks that do that, they're professionals, that type of thing, that's one thing we can take off principals, or at least the direct work we take away from principals. So I think there's certainly some good that can come from that.
So the SROs will be employees of the school district versus being under the authority of the local sheriff or local police.
That's correct.
City police.
And again, Mr. Brown, I alluded to it there, that we've been talking with the sheriff and the interim chief. That's their recommendation, that we hire our own people. So that's not something they're opposed to. They're in favor of us hiring our own folks. They think that will work better for both their agencies and ours.
And how are we paying for this?
It'll be general fund staff, general fund dollars that pay those salaries.
Are we talking one or multiples?
I think in conversations we've had, would be to start with 1 or maybe 1.5 people. I think it would be like everything else we do. As the program grows or as student population grows and the need grows, no different than special ed staff or regular teaching staff. If there's a need to grow the program, we would recommend growing the program. I think starting out, we would recommend 1 or 1.5 people that we talked about at this point. I think that would allow us to get someone in every building periodically, not just in a location or two. And I think that is our preference, to get them out there to all schools.
But this would be a full-time, 40-hour.
Yes, it'd be a full-time position.
Position.
Yes.
Gotcha.
With benefits, et cetera.
With benefits, and we're also looking, we think we'd be looking to hire someone who's already been trained, not someone who's not been to the academy. To hire someone who's already been through all that, as an experienced law enforcement officer.
With potential, maybe even someone that's retired from
Very
a
possible.
law enforcement position, but yet still wants to be able to serve and provide opportunities.
Exactly, very possible.
Let's just hope they're not too retired.
I think I know where you're going with that, and I would agree.
Yeah, really, because that just, the younger the better.
One other question is, do we have like a ballpark, I know for teaching purposes, for teaching staff purposes, I think, what is it, 42,000 is the number, or 52,000?
The average salary is around 50 in Nelson
Okay.
County.
So do we have an idea of what dollar amount we are projected to look at for this?
The budget figure I've used, including fringe, is around $40,000 per position. That may change. That's based on some data I've collected from some police agencies in the area, and assuming a less than a full year calendar, I don't think we need these folks for 259 days. We have 174 instructional days, so it would be somewhat of a reduced calendar, but certainly there would be some extended days. We haven't worked out all those details, so we don't know exactly where that would land.
They're not going to be 174, they're not going to be 259?
That's correct.
Could be a 210.
Exactly.
Yeah.
185.
Yeah, because I would hope that whomever that person is, because as I read through this, it's developing those relationships with staff and students as well, that as we are engaged in things outside the normal 174 days, summertime, that they would also be engaged with our staff, because they're part of our staff at that point.
Agreed.
You sure may.
I'd like to make a motion to approve it. Second.
And we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And next up is a procedure update with Mr. Morris.
Good evening. We, thank goodness, got through all the policy changes over the last couple of meetings, and we just have a couple of minor changes to application for out of area and application for out of district. Mr. Leathers had brought that to my attention, and I just waited again until we got through all those others. So it doesn't require a motion, it's just an application change, a procedure change, but I wanted to bring it to the attention of the board and make sure there's no questions.
I'd like to make that motion.
I want to say congratulations on this deal. The application and contract for out-of-district request. I have looked over this 3 times, and I don't see anything. I hope everybody else looked over it as well, but I'm very pleased with this. It has quite a few things that should have never been taken out of it to begin with.
I have to give Mr. Leathers most credit on that. He
Yes.
worked on doing that.
Yes, and I, for one, out of the board, I appreciate it very much.
Any questions for me? Thank you.
Then I'll need a motion to approve the procedure update as presented.
I make a motion.
Ms. Berry made the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Jackie, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up is our, Nelson County Schools and Head Start Memorandum of Agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Tiffany Clark.
I proposed this at the last working session, the agreement between Nelson County Schools and Central Kentucky Head Start, and I'm asking for approval on that.
So then I'll need a motion to approve the memorandum of agreement for special education services between the Nelson County Board of Education and Central Kentucky Head Start.
I'll make a motion.
Mr.
And
Morgan?
just one quick one, and this is our typical each year, we have to do this to be able to provide those services.
Mr. Morgan made the motion. Ms. Dyke, second. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up is Ms. Powell with the federal funding assurances.
Submitted the funding assurances for all federal programs, and I'm asking that you approve that so that we'll be able to request that fund.
Then I'll need a motion to approve the 2017-2018 district federal funding assurances for Nelson County Schools.
I'll make the motion to approve that, please.
Ms. Dye made a motion. I'll second. Ms. Berry seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Under our college and career readiness, Horizons update. And we've got Ms. Brown.
Good afternoon to all. Mr. Jackie, we're glad to have you back. What I would like to bring to you tonight is information and some proposals to alter the program that we offer at Horizons. Carla, could go to the first slide. On this slide, I have listed some concerns that were brought up both by the board as well as the town hall meetings. We had concerns with discipline issues at Nelson County High School in my old Kentucky home. We had some concerns with the in-school suspension program for high school students at Horizon. And then as a district, in-school suspension has been an issue for middle school students. And then we had credit recovery needs for all students. And you've already heard the good news that I told you earlier in the month that 122 credits were recovered at Horizons this summer, so there is a big need there. On the next slide, I will show you some data that I gathered from districts around us. The first one is Anderson County. Their alternative school is called the Apex Academy. They have around 40 students there. They have some middle school students that were enrolled last year, but Mr. Swank made it apparent that he was going back to his board to stop that combination of middle school students in the same building with high school students. The Learning Center is the Fayette County Alternative School. They have around 190 students there. It is rare that a middle school student is ever sent there. Under the other category, they admit students who are not thriving in their traditional school that have motivational issues, social, emotional, mental health issues. So I really like that paragraph, and you're going to see that again because we have students that fit in those categories as well. Rosenwald Empowerment Preparation Academy is in Frankfort. They have 24 students in grades 9 through 12. It is also rare for them to have any middle school students there. Cardinal Academic Community is 9 through 12 in Scott County. They have 62 students enrolled there. They do not have middle school students. Commander Academy is over in our neighboring Washington County. There are about 25 students there and they don't have middle school. And then we have Horizons, and last year there was an average of 42 students there. There were 2 seats per school for 8th grade students there, and that made me uncomfortable on a daily basis. There were some instances where we had a student or two, and I'll talk about those in a few minutes, below the 8th grade, but I did not like the way that we had middle and high school students together. So the current model that we have at Nelson County High School has in-school suspension, lunchroom detention. There are 2 seats at Horizons daily. They also suspend and have expulsion hearings with the board. Thomas Nelson has lunchroom detention, Saturday school. They had 2 seats at Horizons daily, suspension and expulsion. Old Kentucky Home has lunchroom detention, 2 seats at Horizons daily for 8th grade students, and they also have suspensions rights. Boston, lunchroom detention, 2 seats at Horizons daily and suspension. Bloomfield Middle has lunchroom detention, 2 seats at Horizons daily, in-school suspension and suspension. New Haven, lunchroom detention, 2 seats at Horizons for 8th grade, suspension, and then Horizons has lunchroom detention and 2 seats in in-school suspension, as well as suspension and expulsion. On a rare occasion, after speaking with principals, parents, the school personnel, teachers, and the students, I have placed a couple of students in 7th grade for a time period of 2 to 3 weeks at Horizons in an effort to get their attention. In both cases, to my knowledge, it worked, and the students corrected their behavior. I did not like doing that, and as it says there, we went through many hoops, and everybody was in on the decision before the decision was made to place them there for those 2 to 3 weeks. So in our current model for middle and high schools, We have in-school discipline that's handled at Horizons in one isolated room in the back corner of the building. The schools register the incoming students daily via Google Sheet, and it's shared with all principals and assistant principals in the middle and high schools. The sending schools are responsible to ensure that students have their work. Sometimes that does not occur, but we try to have that work. In-school students who are assigned to Horizons eat lunch with their peers in the in-school suspension room. Students must receive their SPED services as outlined in their IEP while they're being disciplined, and we do that. The in-school suspension room has a capacity of 14 students right now per day. There are no mental health, anger control, or counseling service provided for those students as it stands now. So I have some recommendations that I would like to bring to your attention. In and out of school suspension for all students should be a deterrent as opposed to a day off or a day out of school. It's difficult to punish or discipline students and support students who need credit recovery or extra academic help in the same small setting. Middle and high school students who require disciplinary action should be housed in an alternative setting that's not in the same room with high school students. We've got to keep them apart. I cannot think it's okay to have them all in the same room together. Middle school students in 6, 7, and 8 could be housed in one room, while high school students in 9 through 12 could be housed in another room. Isolation away from the group or the rest of the school is a key component of successful discipline. They've got to be isolated if they're in a disciplinary setting. We could staff such a facility with 2 certified, 1 being SPED, and 1 classified staff person could staff a disciplinary site for middle and high school students. This configuration would fill the need for an in-school suspension facility at each middle and at each high school, as had been discussed in recent town hall meetings. And that would take that suspension piece out of the schools and give them an extra person in their buildings to teach and to work with students, as well as provide the same services out of their building and pull that away so that it is isolated. So I would recommend that we use a blended classroom model that could be implemented with technology and assigned coursework. We have the APEX coursework. We're going to move to Plato for middle school, and then I hope to move to Plato for high school next school year. Counseling and mental health, anger management instruction with individual and small group application could apply for students both in the disciplinary setting as well as in the academic setting. We need to revisit the Nelson County Schools Code of Conduct, and I think that all of you are aware of that as well. And we need to revisit that and change a few things or tweak some things there. We need to talk to site-based councils to revisit their individual school discipline policies to include the recommendations that I'm going to make to you tonight. Now is the time to create a highly structured and visionary program to support students who lack behaviors and abilities to be successful in their educational and social and work-related experiences. So, I would bring to you that we do some work on the name of Horizons. Horizons is known in Nelson County as as somewhere for discipline and not an academic program. And I think that the facility can house both the disciplinary piece as well as the academic exposure and the academic achievements that our students need. And we proved that this summer by recovering those credits. So I would propose that we would term the academic portion of Horizons as the Academy. The building is already known as Horizons Academy. So I just would like to tweak it a little bit and have the academic piece known as the Academy at Horizons, so that students who choose to go there or students who need to go there for credit recovery, when they talk about their school, they will be saying, I go to the Academy, as opposed to being a negative connotation in I go to Horizons. So I have put up there the proposal A. We need to differentiate the academic program at Horizons from the disciplinary aspect. The definition of an academy is an institution of scholars or artists or scientists that promote and maintain standards in a particular field, a place of study or training. And that is exactly what we will be doing at the academy where students are recovering those credits and or getting the help that they need. And then C, we need to alter the name of the academic program to the Academy at Horizons. So that's one piece, that's the academic piece. Do you have questions to this point? We're about halfway through, so I want to ensure that you have the answers that you require before we get way over into this and we can't come back.
So just one question, looking at some of the attachments, one of them is a floor plan of the physical building. And kind of wanting to make sure that I understand how that floor plan mock-up and this proposal fit together.
Okay.
It appears that there's a small portion of the building, I think it's the side that faces OKH.
You are correct.
Where there are a couple classrooms, possibly a common area, high school, middle school separated for the true disciplinary issue piece. Whereas well over 3/4 of that physical building is focused on this concept of the academy, a opportunity for students who need a different learning environment to be able to be successful.
You are correct.
Okay.
And there are glass walls that separate it from the rest of the building. So if you are looking at the mock-up and you have the academy at the top and the horizons on the left-hand side where the square box is, that first room, 118, is the high school room. And then the room across from it, 120, is the middle school room. And then the 119 in the middle is the restroom. The hallway that you see in front of the two doorways, that is all glassed in. So they will never be exposed, nor will the academy students be exposed to the students in Horizons. They will come straight in the front door, go straight to their classrooms, and there they will stay for the remainder of their time there. Whatever they are there for, they will spend that time within that small space, and then they will go back to their schools after their discipline is finished.
Listening to some of what you said about providing the services at the school building itself, the additional staff, it sounds like one of the goals that we have here is being able to address much more timely manner, much more quickly, those potential discipline issue, whatever it might be, and I'll call them more minor types of issues within the school building, whether it's Nelson County, Thomas Nelson, OKH, wherever. Instead of it just being the easy and quick, let's get them out of the building, let's sit on Horizons, let someone else deal with it. So it sounds like we're trying to address that at the school building level, and then this, I'll call them the discipline portion at the Horizons building being really something that is much greater, much more of an infraction, potentially even something that might come before us as an expulsion type of hearing where we place them in this small program in that physical building. Is that kind of the way that I'm understanding right? I appreciate that. Not being at the work session, I'm sure a lot of these questions were asked, but I wanted to make sure that I'm kind of catching up to that same thought process.
Other questions? Okay, so the alternative school, I'm sorry.
So with these two classrooms, where you've got the high school over at Horizons, if you have, let's say, a student that is just so beyond control, and I don't know if that's a situation that has ever surfaced, but if you do have one that is so beyond control, and you need to remove that student from that classroom, how far would they have to go in and through the building to get to what I would call a safe place or an isolated place where they can decompress whatever they need to do to gather themselves before they can go back into the regular classroom?
Who is in the home?
At that point, you send them home.
And at Horizons, if they are out of control, they're already in in-school suspension. So if they are out of control or something happens there and they have another offense, they would immediately go home and serve an out-of-school suspension time period. And then when they come back to school, they would finish their service at Horizons before they go back to their school.
Gotcha.
So, yes, we've got to draw very certain lines
Very tight line.
and be very tight, and that's why I want to go back and visit those codes of conduct at individual schools as well as at the district level, because we need to tighten that up. Our students are getting the message, and I keep referring to summer school data, but it just proves what we're saying. You voted to tighten up on, to lessen the grading scale from 90 to 100 so that students could get scholarships. That's one piece. The other piece is you put, at my recommendation, you put a specific number of credits per grade level. So students are now getting it. If I don't have more than 6 credits, I'm not going to be a sophomore. Or if I don't have more than 18, I'm not going to be a senior. That's why they're all coming to summer school, is because they're getting it. We're tightening up and they're getting the message. We're raising the bar and they're striving to reach it. So I certainly don't want to put anything in place that's going to hamper them from success, but I do want them to be successful, and we've got to tighten up in order to ensure that they are successful.
Well, I think it's a great plan.
Thank you. So,
I mean, and I'll just like to add, another piece about this. You know, if you go backwards in time, 10, 15, 20 years ago, building a physical building such as Horizon and the connotation that came with it and that has been with it, which is why we're talking about maybe changing that name somewhat. It was that student who was just out of control. We didn't know what to do with him. The classroom teacher didn't know what to do with him. And it may not be because we didn't have the tools, maybe we just weren't applying the tools correctly. So, you know, historically, those alternative programs, with, you know, what they've been called for years, were, and I hate to use this phrase, but I'll say, it was the dumping ground for those students that we just didn't know what to do with. And I think we started to recognize that whenever we talk about public education, it does mean every single student. Somehow we've got to be able to try and provide the right type of service. And we see more and more of these former alternative schools being rebirthed as something similar to the academy, or I forget what the name of Washington, the Commander Academy or something. And I still think back to, it's probably been about 6 or 7 years ago. I know each January there is always the board appreciation month. And I don't remember the young lady's name off the top of my head. But we, as board members, we appreciate the, you know, the thanks from students and staff. But there's one thing that I've made sure to hang on to, and I framed it. It was a letter from a young lady who was at the academy at Horizon, thanking us for providing that type of an opportunity for her. She was taken from this community, had to go live with a father in Ohio she didn't know, and then she ended up coming back. And she said that if it was not for this type of an opportunity, she didn't know where she would be. And so we've got to make sure that we continue to try and have those opportunities for our students to find their own success. And we're just kind of there helping guide them along. And that this concept of the academy at Horizons, I think, continues to move that thought process forward.
I think also gives the student kind of that mindset that, hey, I'm valued. You know?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and by taking that negative connotation out of it and calling it the academy, it gives it value, it gives them value.
Yeah, and that is something. I mean, I know at the Department of Education, there's been a lot of looking at alternative programs, and whether or not it is an alternative program that is just a place to house students, or it is an alternative program in that it gives an alternative way for those students to become successful.
Well, I have alternative card, Horizon card, or for those kids that don't fit in, or think they don't fit in, but that I have no problem with it at all. But what part I do like is what we're going to do with students that are not necessarily out of control, but do not have the habits for which we wish they did when they were in the classroom. And whether they're showing respect or lack of respect. And we like to call them mischievous students. And I have no problem with it, because as we know, if those of us that went to the town hall meetings, that was the #1 priority. To me, it's in our handbook, it's in that handbook, that teachers have a right to teach and students have a right to learn. And in some classes, it was apparent that it was more concentration on the students that did not want to learn, and therefore valuable classroom time, teaching time was being thrown out the door, while that teacher confronted and tried to deal with, which I hate the term deal, but that's what it is dealing with those type of students. So I for one, applaud you for coming up with this idea. And I know it took a long time to figure out, too, what to do. Because I do agree, middle school does not have any business with high school. That's the same thing as riding a bus. I never liked my 8th grader riding with a 17-year-old on a bus. They learn too many things. But thank you very much. It's a lot of hard work, I know.
I love help. My colleagues help tremendously, so it's not my personal.
Yes.
Everybody's collaborated to do this.
Yes, great.
And this is a proposal, so we're not.
I know. I'm just saying, a lot of work was put into it between you and Amber, all of you. I so appreciate it.
I'm not gonna have to do a presentation, so I can't wait to do the rest of it.
So, here's what I would recommend for the Academy at Horizons. This would be for high school students, and it would serve the students in grades 9 through 12. We would admit students who are not thriving in their traditional school due to motivational, social, emotional, mental health issues, or they need credit recovery. Students and parents may self-nominate for admission to the Academy at Horizons. The principal, counselor, teachers may recommend students to the Academy at Horizons. Students would be admitted after conference with district and school administration and the completion of appropriate paperwork through admissions documents. And then students would receive the mental health counseling, intervention, special education services that they need at the Academy at Horizons. So they would get the services, the same services that they get in the school, but it would be geared towards students who have certain issues or who just don't want to or don't feel like they fit into a large high school that we have, and they can choose the smaller setting to fulfill their educational requirements. What this would mean is that everyone that is there now will remain. We have been over the last 2 or 3 weeks, the high school folks and I, as well as Mr. Rouse, have been meeting together with parents and students, either to have students enter Horizons as it is now, or to move back. They have gained their credits that they lost, and they want to go back to their traditional high school. So we have students going both ways. After they get their credits recovered, they want to go back. That is perfectly fine. Some students choose not to go back. Some students want to graduate from this institution, and there's nothing wrong with that. They walk with their class in the spring, and you will see them in the spring. We also have a Christmas graduation, so that anyone who finishes their requirements, and we will have several at Christmas, that will graduate and have fulfilled their graduation requirements over the summer and the fall. So that this new configuration does not mean that anybody will leave, but these are the criteria that we would ask, and we're already doing this. I'm just informing you. We're doing this already. There's a process and paperwork, and parents and students and school personnel are all equally involved in students moving to Horizons or moving back to their high school. So this is the recommendation that I have for the alternative high school or the Academy at Horizons. Now we move into the disciplinary piece, the Horizons piece. So I would ask that we create Horizons in-school suspension program. There would be 2 different houses. One of them would be grades 9 through 12. The other would be grades 6 through 8. Administrators would work together to develop the criteria for entrance and exit to the in-school suspension facility. Students would be housed in a secluded area at Horizons with the glass walls. They would not leave their station. We have talked with furniture makers and office supply places and have found furniture that will have them housed in a cubicle where they will have their laptop or their a Chromebook and their materials, and they will be isolated in the room one-on-one with the teacher. Students would bring their work with them as well as use computer programs throughout the day. The in-school suspension program for middle and high school's name would remain Horizons. They will do everything within that glass wall. They will not leave during the day to collaborate with anyone. They will do work all day, every day that they are assigned to be in the in-school suspension facility under very strict scrutiny from their adults in the room with them. If they are a SPED student, we have SPED staff that will service them within the building, so they will still get their services. We also have mental health counselors who come in and out of the building, and if they need those services, then they would get those services, but that would be the only thing that they would move from their station if they needed to be with that person by themselves. So all of those pieces are there. So we're going to still support them, but we're going to ensure that they understand that they are here to learn and teachers are there to teach, and we will get that accomplished. The discipline recommendations, the Horizons in-school suspension program, grades 9 through 12, could house 15 students per day. That would mean that each high school gets 6 seats each, and the academy would get 3 if they had an issue. Any seats unused could be used by any school with a need. So if Thomas Nelson only used 3 and Nelson County needed 9 that day, then they could use those seats. We use a Google Doc so that we can all see at the same time who is where and how many seats are taken. Horizons Middle School in-school suspension, 6th through 8th grades, would house 12 students per day. So that would mean that each middle school would have 3 seats, and that would be 6th through 8th grade. Any seats unused, the same thing, could be used by any school with a need. I cannot imagine that we will have 12 students over there at any time in the middle school. I just don't think we will, but it will be there if they need it. Students will be housed in 2 rooms with a restroom facility between them. Students would not leave the Horizons facility during their stay for any reason. Breakfast, lunch, and restroom breaks would be taken at their station and in their classroom. And then students would be totally isolated from any interaction with other students. So in order to do this, to create these 2 programs, we would need you to create a position for an in-school suspension supervisor. The in-school suspension assistant position has been previously allocated, so we need an in-school suspension supervisor. We would need specialized furniture so that students are isolated from others. We need to create the criteria for admittance, conduct, and release, which we already have in place in our Nelson County Code of Conduct. We can use that until we can get what we need specifically. And then I would recommend changing the name of the alternative high school program to the Academy of Horizons, and then recommend changing the name of the disciplinary program to Horizons, so that there would be a differential between that, and the academy students could feel that they are appreciated as students seeking a degree.
Do we have a cost?
I had talked with Mr. Hawkinsmith about the creation of the in-school suspension supervisor, and he can help me with that, please.
Well, the supervisor position would be, that'd be similar to a teaching salary, and the other position would be an instructional assistant. The use district average salaries are looking at around $75,000 for those 2 positions.
Assistant position is already authorized, so we would not be, the only increased cost would be that of the administrator.
The workstations are around $150, $180 each. And then there's a teacher workstation that's right around $200 that is on wheels. So it takes up very little space. It's about as big as this lecture. And there's a chair that goes with it. That's the only thing that we would need as far as that goes.
Let me ask, how students would there be filled? I mean,
I think it has the capacity for 60. We're at around 45 to 48 right now. We had some students that were transferred over this morning, so that got us real close to between 45 and 48. We're still working on placing some other students who need credit recovery.
okay, do we need, is there, I don't know how to put this right. Do you need other help there? Because I would like to see it used. I mean, as many kids that need it, be able to use it, instead of saying, well, we're sort of full and we can't. Well, if we've got room, do we need one more person? Do we need?
Well, I'm always going to tell you we need more people.
Well, yes,
but I don't want to mislead you.
Yeah.
I believe that the capacity for the personnel that we have now is 60 students. Then you would have the Horizons piece on top of that. So if it were at capacity, you're talking, at least 20 more. So that would raise the total number in the building to 80 to 85. I'm not sure that we could get any more in there. However, yes, while you're asking for what we need, I will tell you that during our audit in the spring, when we had all of our state and categorical programs audited, we did have a note on there that asked for someone to receive people in the front of the building, to always be there, because the students at the academy are still very involved in the ATC, and they walk back and forth between the two facilities during the day to do their ATC courses. And sometimes that is a safety concern. We have the cameras and we have the locked doors and we have the doorbell and all of that. But to have an adult there to receive those students could be something that we would want to come back to you. I'm not ready to tell you that tonight, but you asked the question and I'm going to answer. That might be something that we would like to come back with at some time in the near future, but that is not in this piece right now.
Okay, my concern was, I want the building to be used to its full potential. If that means 68, if that means 72, as many students as we can help, that's what I would like to see. And if we need to get more help, or, I would like for that to be something that we need to address, because it's important for those kids. It's not for us, it's for the students, and they need the help.
Are you asking about what would probably be termed more the traditional classroom staff person?
Yes.
That if right now, I think you said there were low 40s, if all of a sudden in the academy it jumped up to 60, does that mean, do we already have the number of instructional staff to meet the needs of 60, or would we possibly need to be adding an additional half-full instructional staff?
Got it.
That's what you get. And plus, I think on top of that, that concept of that person that welcomes people as well as kind of controls the flow there at the physical building itself, at the entrance to that building.
Yes. I don't like to jump off the cliff. I like to pilot things, and y'all know that. So I would like to move forward with what I've brought you tonight with an open end, that as we get the foundation down and we get the furniture in place and everything in place, and I work with the principals to get their input as well, then I can come back to you and bring you really good information, because right now I'm kind of hypothesizing. I know this will work. It just is common sense, this will work, but I just need to get it going and up and then report back to you. But I appreciate your looking out for making sure we have all we need.
Well, there's going to be some tweaking at some point. That's what you're getting at.
Yes.
You mentioned something there that, and there may not be an answer to this question yet. It's not necessarily directed toward you. It's more so toward Mr. Bradley and Ms. Drury. the principals of our 2 high schools. This is going to be as it continues to kind of mold itself, get tweaked, I mean, it's going to be a key part of supporting the instructional goals of those 2 high schools and making sure all their students' needs are met. So my question more is towards Mr. Bradley or Ms. Jury, and kind of, does your gut tell you that this will help fit into that educational instructional ideology that you're also implementing at your respective school buildings?
I definitely think it will. We have referred several students who have already started at Horizons. They have gone through summer school. We have students on a daily basis who either we notice or they come to us and say, "Sure, I'm behind on credit. What can I do?" And to have that as an option for those students is massive, because in the past, we've had credit recovery at the high school, which, as Ms. Brown said, has taken away another position at the school. So to be able to have that offering at Horizon for the academy would help to move this forward.
What I hear you say is it's another tool in your toolbox.
Absolutely.
I would echo that. Choices are great.
Man, a few words.
Yeah. Hey, and he deferred to Ms. Jury. Was it just ditto, right? You're the one at Christmas time that puts the sign in the yard that says ditto and points at the really decorated house next door.
So I'm hearing this correctly, I just want to make sure I didn't miss something. The credit recovery then will move out of the high schools and solely into the academy.
Yes, they still have the ability, if they have a student that just needs to recover a credit or 2, and they have ESS money that can pay for people to work one-on-one with the computer program, with Apex. They have the capability still at the high schools to do that kind of work. But the load of credit recovery would occur at the academy. Yes. We were not seeing as many credits as we needed to be seeing recovered through in-house credit recovery, and it was taking a staff person out of their rotations. So I just think that this is the best thing to know, and because we had such a good game over the summer, that helped me to come to this conclusion that this would be the thing that we need to do.
I support this wholeheartedly. Ms. Brown's done a lot of work in setting this up, a lot of research, and it's very data-driven, research-based, and I think this would be, this tweaks of the program that are already there would be amplified to actually help academic and discipline programs in both high schools.
All right. With that being said, are we okay?
No, you know where I'm getting ready to go. Go ahead.
Okay. So we've got 2 here. So I need a motion to approve the reorganization of Horizons Academy to an academic center with the title, The Academy at Horizons, and a disciplinary unit with the title, Horizons In-School Suspension Facility.
Motion.
Mr. Jackie made the motion. I need a second.
Second.
Ms. Berry, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then I need a motion to approve the job description for the in-school suspension supervisor coordinator.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Ms. Dye made a motion to approve the job description.
I'll second.
Mr. Norman, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, next up is our student and stakeholder engagement, and we've got the calendar modification.
I brought to you guys the working session, and we talked about moving some days that we had in February to align with President's Day. So you have 2 different decision papers. One is to approve that movement of those days. And then we made a decision based on a lot of new information coming in. A lot of other counties are doing the same thing. With August the 21st with times fluctuating of when they were saying, this looked like it was going to be a danger to our staff and kids. So we felt that it was the smartest thing to do in consultation with Mr. Brown and other staff. And this is the way to close for that day. And so we're asking that that makeup day be February 16th, which is the day that we're removing one of our work days. So it's two different decision makers there. I hope that makes sense with the two moves.
Yes, what the original, they had, the original calendar, they had the wrong date for President's Day.
I just want to make sure. the
Yes,
dates
and
were
they're,
correct.
so they're actually just moving what they had for the work day from the 9th to the 16th, and then the change also in President's Day to the correct date. And then the recommendation is to use the first date, the 16th, as the makeup day for August 21st.
Okay, so first motion, I'll make a motion to approve to modify the 2017-2018 calendar as presented to align with President's Day.
Motion.
Mr. Jackie made the motion.
Second.
Ms. Berry second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And then the second one is to approve the makeup day, February 16th, 2018 for August 21st, 2017.
That's right.
Need a
Motion.
Mr. Jackie made the motion.
I'll second.
Mr. Norman second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And next up is the approval of the superintendent selection committee process with Mr. Brown.
Yes, as you all made aware at the work session, that you wanted to get the screening committee started, and we will fulfill the obligation of the statute that 30 days after that the date was apparent, which would be August the 1st. So we would get this committee set up by September the 1st. Now, the state regulations are very clear on this committee, and it states, and I'm going to read it, the law, the following, that number one, there are 2 teachers elected by the teachers in the district, 1 board member appointed by the board chair, 1 principal elected by principals in the district, 1 parent elected by presidents of the PTOs or PTAs of the schools in that district, and 1 classified employee elected by classified employees in the district. Mr. Gohagan is passing out those things to the board at this time. It also states that if we have 8% or greater minority students, then we would have to include a minority parent in that. I had Mr. Leathers verify our count, and we are at 7.1%, so we are not required by the law to do that. Okay, I have asked, take myself completely out of this as far as this committee. I've asked Ms. Williams and Ms. Brown to be the 2 people that are the point people here in the central office to in charge of this. Ms. Williams will deal with the selection of the teachers and with the parent. Ms. Brown will be in charge of the principal and the classified employee, and you will appoint the board member to that. I also have asked Ms. Brown, Ms. Williams, they can come forward and talk a little bit about how the process they're going to use to select those things for you all. This is a very somewhat clear-cut approach to that. Now, let me also clarify one thing here, if you don't mind. As an interim's a peculiar position to a certain extent. But I want to make sure that everyone completely understands that I serve as an interim, and I am not, nor will I ever be, a candidate for this position. I'm here for the short period of time as the board's will to serve and to be the go-between the last superintendent and the next superintendent. I am not a candidate, nor is this a position that you appoint for somebody to backdoor into that. So I want everyone to make sure they completely understand my position in this. I'm here to serve this district and to make the transition as smooth as I possibly can for the next superintendent.
Appreciate it.
All right. Ms. Brown?
So, the principal member, this is, what you see on the screen is what the principals received today, and this is how they will go about the process of nomination. So anyone who wants to nominate one of their colleagues or themselves will submit a letter of intent to me, and I will put all of their names on the ballot. The ballot will go out to them on a Wednesday, and it will come back by the end of the day on Monday. The dates are up there, and I'm blind and can't see them, but it's up there. It's the 28th on Monday. The 28th is the day that I will count their ballots and find the principal committee member. So that's the way the process will be done for the principal.
For the teacher, each certified employee will receive a link and a Google form or a paper copy to nominate themselves or someone else that holds that certified position. Nominations will be accepted until August the 23rd. All those nominations, like I said, if it's electronic, will go to Carla McKay. All nominees that are listed will then be placed on a ballot. The ballots will be given out at each school on August the 24th. Schools will then select a date for all teachers to sign in and cast their vote by secret ballot. It will be placed in a voting box at their school. Boxes will then be collected and votes tallied by Carla McKay by August the 30th, and the two teachers receiving the most votes will then serve on the selection committee. So it sort of takes us out of that role. It will all be anonymous.
On the classified member, there are many different role groups in the district, and I listed those there: bus drivers, custodians, nurses, bookkeepers, secretaries, central office personnel, the technology department, instructional assistants. I think I've gotten them all there, but the process is the same that I described with the principal, with the exception of the voting. And because there are so many of them, Carla and I are going to make a road show go around to the district and have it similar to how we cast votes as citizens. We check in with our driver's license or, sign off. And so we will have a list of all of the personnel in that building that falls under classified, and they will sign their name and put their ballot in the box. And so it will be anonymous, but we will have a check and balance system to know that everybody has had the opportunity to vote. So it will be the same process, except I'm not going to count their votes until the next day on the 29th, on Tuesday. So that will be the process that happens with them. Their letters will go out tomorrow. They will get their information tomorrow. I just couldn't do a principal and board meeting and all that at the same time. So I need tomorrow to get that done.
As far as the parent members, all parents will receive a paper copy that they will have access to at each school, or they will have access to a Google form to nominate a parent or themselves by August the 23rd. All nominees will then be placed on a ballot and distributed to the school's PTO or PTA president if they have one. This is a little different because several of our schools do not have a PTO or PTA. So if not, a ballot will be given to the chair of the next largest governing body of parent members, such as site-based council, if they have a parent advisory council, or etc. That could be, we could work our way all the way down to a booster club, just whichever one is the largest body. If a school does not have one of these active groups, they will then be asked to select one parent to serve as their voting representative for their school. Then votes will be cast by secret ballot from one parent. Ballots will be collected by Carla McKay and tallied on August the 30th. The parent with the highest number of votes will serve on a selection committee, and there's a link to the Google form that will be provided on each school's webpage and the district page.
Very transparent process. I would encourage all the teachers, all the parents, everyone that would like to participate into this. To do that, it's basically, I want to make sure that you understand that I'm out of this process other than helping organize. Ms. McKay will be an active participant in helping gather that with Ms. Brown and Ms. Williams, and I are stepping back from that to a certain extent. You will need the principals will help us facilitate, make sure we get to all the people. We'll double and triple check all that to make sure that we get that word out to everyone.
I have a question.
Yes.
Question being that, are there any parents that would be disqualified, such as, I'll use myself as an example. I'm a parent of a student. Clearly, I'm not going to, but if they're a parent representative on the site base, are they considered out? If you're a teacher, if you have a dual role, if you're a teacher and a parent, can you serve in the parent role? You see where I'm going there? I want us to be very clear to people that just because you already serve in one role, you could still do this, or you can't still do this. Is there any restrictions there?
There's some clarification Ms. Williams has it. Okay. Only on you. You cannot serve as a parent representative because of.
Well, nobody would vote for me.
But that's it. Ms. Williams, you may answer.
Yes, and we're double checking that. I spoke with Mr. John Barth at KSBA, and he's clarifying all those roles for me. That I know we currently have one teacher that is also a parent that serves as a PTO president. And to the best of my knowledge, they can't take up 2 seats on the committee, but they do still qualify. As long as you're not a school board member, then you do qualify in both roles.
Probably the biggest misconception is that all parents would vote on that, and that's not the way that the state statute is written. It is just those presidents of those organizations or selected organizations have the authority to vote for the parent representative. It doesn't have to be one of them, obviously. It can be any parent other than you, Ms. Guy.
Because I also asked that question for myself. I'm a parent of 3 children in the district, but also work here, and of course, Central Office does not have a representative on there. I could choose to be on or to run for a parent position or nominate myself, but I am stepping back from this process, so I will not be involved. So.
Thank you.
And this may be more of a legal type of question. I know from looking at the DRS, it's within 30 days, which is why we're moving ahead with getting this selection committee process established. But with that said, I know we've had some continued discussion about looking at consulting firms, search firms, to actually help spearhead the search for a new superintendent, since while this is complicated, as we look at this, it's the most simple part of the entire process.
And this is the only thing that has a deadline.
Okay.
And it's 30 days from the effective date of the resignation, which would be August 1. Yeah. So this must be in place by September.
So what we may be doing here is, it could be that by the end of this month, which would be 30 days, we have these committee members identified, and then it may be a conversation with them. Now, we've got you in place. Now we've got some other work we have to do, so just hang tight.
There'd be a part 2. So,
Yeah.
there would be a part 2. So part 1 is to get the committee in place, and then part 2 would be to determine how we're going to move forward with the selection process, be it through an agency.
I defer to Mr. Gohagen, but it's my understanding that after the committee is selected, it's then up to the board on the speed or whatever that they do.
And I think that is kind of the point I was getting to, is making sure that once these members are identified, that we do have that conversation with them that, okay, now that you've been identified and you're part of this, it doesn't mean tomorrow you're starting your work. Because there is a part 2, I think, like you said, of quite a bit more background work to even get applicants to the point of where they could start doing their review and the timetables that are required.
That is correct. That is correct.
So Mr. Jackies, point, to be clear, there are no applicants yet.
Sure.
I think that is important for everyone to understand, that there are no applicants yet.
Well,
So if people are concerned about somebody has applied, well, there won't be any applicants until the job is published and is in.
as a body politic, as a body politic, we haven't even had the conversations of what are the criteria we're looking for? What are the things that we're going to be expecting out of a superintendent applicant? So until those are even identified, and whether, which is not my preference, but whether, we say, okay, Carla, put together an application for people to fill out, which Carla would be going, or whether we go with that search firm, then there's still that process of now let's develop what that idea of a superintendent candidate is, and now let's go forth and make sure that people that are interested understand.
That is correct.
Yeah.
The only thing that we're doing tonight is asking you to approve the process that we're going to select this committee.
This is another one of those state law check boxes that we got to make sure we hit timelines on.
That's correct.
Yeah, because I feel like after what we've been through the last 6 months,
I'm in no rush.
I agree.
I'm in no
Because
rush.
people don't move around till January. And there's no sense, we can collect our thoughts and what we want, as opposed to, somebody thinking, oh, yeah, we need to take our time, and we need to, as I said, we need to breathe.
I know, we've been through a lot.
Yes, and I don't see any point of getting all excited yet, except for this part of it, to establish our committee.
Okay, well, with that being said, we need a motion to approve the superintendent selection committee process.
Motion.
Mr. Jackie made the motion. I need a second. Second. Ms. Berry, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay. And next is our guest comments. And our guest comment policy says that any person wishing to address the board may do so by following these rules. Individuals representing themselves are limited to 3 minutes. Individuals representing a group are limited to 5 minutes. Please step up to the microphone, state your name and address, and if you represent a group, state the name of the group you are representing.
My name is Jeff Dickerson. My address is 1707 Alextown Road in New Haven. And I appreciate the rhetoric about the upcoming selection process. And thanks for allowing me the time to address the board and express some of the collective community interests. I've talked to parents, students, teachers, and interestingly enough, some young parents with very young children anticipate themselves being in our system at some point in the near future. We have a lot at stake and are obviously concerned about how you're going about this process. So at this upcoming critical juncture, we have an opportunity to consider candidates with leadership styles that we've not seen in the past, maybe in the past several decades. And also a chance to possibly change from our current unhealthy and antagonistic atmosphere that we have between high schools and others. We should not accept more of the same from the top position in our school. The taxpayers who fund the system year in and year out may not all be aware of the details of our current condition, i.e. the antagonistic relations between high schools, as well as the low overall district rankings and the turnover indicated by recent teachers and even our principals. Nor might they know of the pivotal selection process that's upcoming. While we undergo this upcoming process, we all need to understand that yes, change is uncertain to many people. And however, I would hope that you would agree that it's absolutely and inherently impossible to improve any system or oneself without some sort of change. So consider where things stand right now with our overall district rankings and such, and ask yourself, what does the community, not individuals or the establishment itself, stand to lose by not being open to possible change, including proven leadership abilities, and ensuring that all candidates are considered fairly and objectively. I recommend proceeding with the guidance and support from available state resources. I've heard that the cost may be a point of contention, but if that's the case, I know of formations of private donations that would help offset this impact to the school district. In my opinion, the cost is insignificant relative to the importance of the process. So I recommend this legislative with us. I know the pressures and stress that comes along with handling public funds and making public policy. Some guidance in these instances of potential intense scrutiny is most certainly advisable if available, and I think it's available. I commend you for stepping up and filling the roles you're filling, but with that responsibility, the community expects that your thinking will not center around short-term effects on the current establishment or individuals within that establishment. Instead, we insist that your judgment be ruled by how the Nelson County school system will be affected for many years to come with this all-important selection process. In addition, the community wants to know how its voice is being heard during this process. And I respect your seats on the board and the diversity that you bring. However, the community voice is integral to the process of creating a healthy dialogue about the future and the culture we expect within our district. So this type of transparency, and I'm glad to hear that word come out earlier, is what we expect as we go through. And I want to thank you in advance for any consideration you give to a possible community forum in the limited amount of time that we have, or if it needs to come in stage 2, so that concerned citizens can voice their concerns and become more educated about what they're getting for their money. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Suzanne Height, 602 Bloomfield Road, Barstown. I know I've emailed all of you and several board members I've talked to by phone. It's nice to put a name with a face. Good evening. I want to thank you. This is the first board meeting I've sat through, and I feel like I'm among friends. I feel like we're moving in a positive direction, and I'm really excited about where we are and what's in front of us. Also, I want you to know as board members, the community is behind you and ready to be engaged in the search for a new superintendent. There's a lot of excitement. There's a lot of folks who want to be involved, and I'm very pleased that you've put out the word tonight about the selection committee. I will be nominating myself. If someone doesn't nominate me, I'm very interested in being part of the process. And as Mr. Jackie mentioned and Mr. Dickerson also mentioned, there are community resources out there to help us work through the process of finding a superintendent. I have a friend and colleague who's the Oldham County School Board and has been for over a decade. She's been through 3 superintendent searches in her tenure. One they did without any outside help. The last 2 they did with outside help. They hired the Kentucky School Board Association. My friend tells me it's a full-time job. There's laws and regulations that apply. The Kentucky School Board Association has done over 150 searches in their tenure. They did 13 last year. What they will provide is an impartial third party to protect the integrity, the legality, and the credibility of the entire process. We have a community who's hurting, and we are moving forward, but never at any time before have I heard the community so involved. They want to be involved. I would suggest public forums. I would suggest having the community help and have an input into what we're looking for in a superintendent. Also, I think the KSBA, they have resources to cast the widest net possible to get the greatest number of applicants to this position. I feel like we're at a crossroads. We can do wonderful things with the assistance of the KSBA. I have spoken to the KSBA. I actually have a brochure for each of you on the board from them. 2 years ago, when my friend at Oldham County did the search, it was $8,000. The price is now $6,000. They have reduced their price as a recognition that, school districts' budgets are strapped. They want to help. They want to be part of the process. And again, last year they did 13. And particularly too, that our school board superintendent, the one that we hire, salary will be over $100,000. I don't know the annual budget for the Nelson County school system, but I know it's in the millions. $6,000 seems like a small price to pay for help through this very complicated and very important process. I would urge all of you to look at this in your phase 2 of your discussions about the superintendent. I'll hand these out after I'm done speaking.
We also discussed a little bit about the search committee. My friend actually told me too that there are some communities and some school boards who are now putting students on the search committee. Fayette County has done it and Jefferson County has done it. I think it would be something for the board to look at, to add a student. There's no legal requirement that there's no legal prohibition that it cannot be done. Okay, that is for sure. The other thing, I can't remember who discussed this, it might have been Mr. Brown, that the minority right now, we're at 7.1%. If we were over 8%, we would have to add a minority to the search committee. Again, I think that's something we can look at and potentially add a minority to the committee, even though we are not legally required to do so. I think it would be an outreach to those in our community who are minorities and get another parent on the board or on the selection committee, get another voice, another, different perspective to bring more people to the table to make this a very successful selection process. So in summary, I ask that you look at very strongly hiring KSBA. There is actually another organization that's called KA, I think it's KA, Kentucky?
KASA.
Okay. Kentucky Association of School Board Members, or School Administrators, that's what it is. I have some documents on here too. Again, I want you to know that, there's been so much negativity and so much stuff going on in the community. And we've gotten to a place where we can look forward, we can look for improvement. And what I hear from people as I talk to them is that they're excited, they're looking forward to the future, and I'm hoping that you keep the community involved, talk to people. I've been encouraging people to call you and get involved in the process and let their voices be heard. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and if there's anything any of you need from me, I would be glad to help.
Thank you.
Also very fortunate that Ms. Berry is actually a board member of KSBA.
Seriously?
Yes. And so,
I'll take it out.
Okay, I'm sure, yeah, thank you.
I think just to follow up, and we talked about this at the working session, as close as we are to the line on the minority member issue, and we talked about it at the last meeting, I think that's a good idea. If we don't end up with a minority person, I think that's a very good idea to maybe search somebody out.
and that can all be done after the first. All we have to do is meet these guidelines, which you could add a student or a minority member, or if one's not selected in this process, after the first, when you form the committee.
Do we have to approve that as a board, or can we just say, just go ahead?
I'm sorry, go ahead, what?
You would have to probably approve it to add one more to
You'd have to have an approval for
the
that.
committee.
Yeah, I would say it sounds like what Mr. Gohage is saying here is the ideal approach is let's make sure we meet this 30-day window. Let's see what the makeup of those, was it about a half a dozen, 7 people, give or take, that are on that search committee. We may find that minority person involved with it already. If not, then I think that's a good idea that we try and figure out how to pursue that to add. And even having discussions on the student piece as well. I know, Thomas Nelson and Nelson County High School both are very active about ensuring their students are involved in decisions that happen at that school building level. Quite often they end up running a lot of the things that are happening for students there. The one caution that I would throw out, and we just have to think it through, is that search committee, the last time that we did have a superintendent search 8 years ago, there were, I think, over 30 applications that were received that then every member of that search committee had to read and review, had to meet on and discuss. And so I want to make sure that, it's a lot of work. I want to make sure that we don't overburden students, but that if we can figure out how to incorporate them, I think it's a perfect idea. We've just got to make sure to be respectful of that committee's time as well.
To be in favor for that, students, I would love that, and the minority, I would want that
Definitely
too.
want to hear from them.
We're all committed to complete transparency.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so the one thing is, we know what we have to do by the law. We know who has to be on there. What it doesn't say is what additional we as a board can add. So my request would be that we, before the next working session, look and see okay, what legally can we add to the requirements, such as student representation? I mean, clearly a minority representation, there.
Well, and I think one of the key pieces before that next work session too, or as part of that work session, is we do need to have in-depth discussions on a search firm. Because as Ms. Ike was saying, over 100 plus superintendent searches that the Kentucky School Board Association has done. I'm not sure how many the Kentucky Association of School Administrators have done, but I'm sure it's quite a few as well. In fact, they gave a presentation to us 8 years ago with their approach to searches.
And there are actually private.
There are some others as well. I forget his last name, but I remember his first name was Phil. He was former superintendent of Ashland Independent
Phil
Schools.
Eason.
There you go, Phil Eason, who also came and presented. And I think if we can get that search firm, if that's a route that we want to go, which we've heard encouragement tonight from 2 speakers here, if that's the route that we want to go, we get that decision made and in place, and then we put upon that search firm the task of, here's what we'd like to see happen. Now we're paying you money. Go and make it happen for us. Whether that is we need additional representation on that search committee, okay, search firm, go and figure out how you're going to make that happen and be respectful of all the work that's involved in it. Now come back to us and work with us on that next step. So.
Well, they used to, the search committee years ago, I know another one of those years ago, but they would ask send a survey to us 5, and each one of us would fill out the forms that what we want to see in one. Then they would take that and compile it, and then he or she would have a more clear idea of what we were looking for as a board. Now that's what they used to.
That's all good, but I don't know what they want.
Right, looks like I'm having a
But
community
I'm
room in my
just
house.
saying, yeah, you know what I mean? We would start out, and then I guess when the add to.
Well, some of the search firms will also facilitate
Yes.
the community forums and things like that to
Yes.
do that. So I mean, all those things that Ms. Height said and other gentlemen said, Mr. Dickerson said, can all be done within the process. I know everybody wants the finished product, but we got to get this one element done and completed by September the 1st. And then anything you choose to add other than this element, you can do afterwards. And we will have this committee for you at the work session, and you will know completely who has been selected and stuff like that for that.
We gotta get those, like you said, we gotta get those wheels in motion.
And that, Ms. White, is the first Thursday of the month. That's our working session always, first Thursday.
And again, you know, it's something that probably we do need, Ms. Brady, that we might need to have on our agenda for that work session, or I don't know whether there needs to be a special session called at some point, which is that discussion among ourselves in a meeting of what are we going to do as far as search firm purpose. So I just throw that out there. It's not anything we have to deal with tonight.
Plenty of time. Let's get the committee, and then we'll work on search firms, and we'll start putting.
You've done a really good job of being transparent and open into this process. So.
Well, and here's the thing too. So for most of us up here on the board, this is a brand new experience for us. And so there's, I think, a little bit of a learning curve and a little bit of guidance that we need from, you know, experienced folks who've done this before. So.
I've done it twice as being a principal on the committee. And it once without and once with a search firm. So it is a process, but the more input you get, the more open it is, the better the process. So when a new person is selected, then that person comes in and has a much greater buy-in than if it's not.
Great suggestions. So I think we should definitely work towards that. All right, anyone else with any guest comments? Nobody else? We're good? Okay. Then I will need a motion to adjourn regular session.
Motion.
Mr. Norman made the motion.
Second.
Ms. Lai second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we do not need executive session, so we are complete.